Hello everybody, Brett Tadlock, TN Artist here. Thanks for joining me today. Today's painting is Upper Burgess Falls here in Tennessee, just outside of where I live. So I wanted to do kind of a subdued painting with this because if you trek up on the Burgess Falls, you can find some really nice area there. So let's kind of dive into it and I'll explain my process as I went through it. So I started with a tinted canvas like I normally do, and then laid in the underpainting tones for what I wanted. Again, knowing that this is going to be a very subdued painting, I went with a lot of grays and green grays and blue grays and brown grays, just kind of really subtle tones. From there, started pushing some of my darks and figuring out where the light would be hitting and coming from, because obviously it's coming from that bright yellow section in the upper right. So trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to get that to come in? How do I want it to stream across? What's it going to hit? And so forth. So that's what I'm laying out here. And then once I kind of get that idea, it's a matter of starting to lay in some of the shapes for the trees in the distance. I also knew I wanted this to be very almost busy with the undergrowth that's there, because some of this area gets very thick with bushes and shrubs, and I wanted to reflect that and do some negative painting where I paint a lighter color to hint at a tree instead of a darker color, and a lighter color to hint at some of the bushes and so forth. So that's kind of what I played around with here if you look in some of the tree area in the upper left. Once I kind of had that figured out, I wanted to lay in some of the lighter tones to figure out the way the water would flow and kind of move around. And then from there, kind of figure out exactly how it would go on everything else. So I started doing that and getting that laid across there, and then laying in some of my brighter tones so I could kind of say, okay, this is going to be some of my brighter brights and some of my darker darks. So let me just start using colors that are in between that to kind of denote where the shadows are, where the highlights are, and so forth. And just kind of playing around with the textures and the dark cracks and crevices under the rocks as it really dives back into it. Obviously the waterfall area is the main focus. It's just slightly off center and just slightly below center. So, but I wanted it to be obviously the path. Everything is pointing into that. If you look at the composition, the tree lines are sloping down to it. The rocks are pointing into it. There will be a path coming, a light path coming down from the sunlight streaming to it. So it's very much, that's the center focus that I wanted for this, but I still wanted some soft, abstract flows of water around it. So that way it would have a really nice feel to it and get a lot of the different textures. I used some really rough brushes on here, and this is done in Procreate on my iPad, but you could easily do this in ArtRage or Rebel or something like that as well. It's not necessarily dependent upon the program that you're using. It's just more the technique of building the layers, building the texture, and taking your time to paint through it and really kind of just let it build up in the different layers. As far as layers go, I only painted this on about 2 or 3 layers, and that's just mainly so that some of my lighter colors wouldn't interact with some of my lower ones. And it'd be really just about like painting on acrylic or something, so that you're painting over top of a dried area. And that's what I was doing here. So just kept building up the textures and kind of playing around with where the light's going to hit and everything else. And that's really kind of the main thing with it. So I'll just let this play for the next few minutes, and that way you can kind of get used to it. If you do have questions, make sure to leave them below. If you haven't subscribed or anything, you can do that too and share this with other people. I do have brushes and stuff if you need those on my Gumroad page, and on my Patreon, which is only $3 a month, you could join and get some discounts and stuff there. And I have hours and hours of training and classes there as well, so talking about for painting these different things. But anyway, make sure to come over there and join it. But yeah, just kind of watch this for the next few seconds here, and then I'll jump back on here. Okay, so that's kind of the painting towards the final steps there as far as that goes. I hope you got something out of this. Again, if you have questions or anything else, leave them below. Be happy to answer them. But again, thanks for watching. Thanks, for being here. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. And here's the final piece.